In Hollywood, respect means everything, especially to men like Frank Sinatra. So when a younger star suddenly inherited the role Sinatra believed should have been his, the resentment quietly started building behind the scenes. Then came one explosive night on live television. Sitting across from Johnny Carson with millions watching at home, Sinatra stopped holding back and publicly went after Clint Eastwood in a moment that stunned the audience. But decades later, after the full story finally surfaced, people began realizing Sinatra's anger may not have come from jealousy alone. Born into a death scene. Imagine entering the world with doctors already believing there was no hope. When Frank Sinatra was born, the delivery room was complete chaos. The birth had gone horribly wrong. He came out blue, silent, and not breathing. Doctors used forceps to pull him free, gripping his head during the struggle. At one point, they believed the baby was stillborn and shifted all their attention toward saving his mother instead. But Sinatra's grandmother refused to accept that the child was gone. She grabbed the newborn and rushed him under freezing cold water. Somehow, the shock worked. The baby gasped, cried, and came to life. The traumatic birth left permanent scars behind. The forceps damaged the side of his face, something Sinatra would remain deeply insecure about for years. And that was only the beginning of the physical struggles that followed him through childhood. His parents were Italian immigrants trying to build a life in America, and both were larger-than-life personalities in their own ways. His father, Anthony Sinatra, had once fought as a lightweight boxer under the name Marty O'Brien. His mother, Dolly Sinatra, worked as a midwife and quickly became a powerful figure in the local Italian-American community. But behind closed doors, Dolly carried a much darker reputation. Rumors swirled for years that she secretly operated an underground abortion clinic for young Catholic women desperate for help during a time when abortion was illegal and heavily condemned. Even members of Sinatra's own family later admitted that Dolly lived a complicated double life. Meanwhile, young Frank kept battling one physical setback after another. He suffered from a damaged eardrum, reportedly linked to his traumatic birth, and later underwent surgery that left visible marks behind. Then came severe teenage acne that permanently scarred his face with deep pockmarks. At school, classmates mocked him mercilessly, calling him Scarface. The nickname infuriated him. Every insult chipped away at his confidence, but it also fueled something inside him. Years later, the same boy people laughed at would grow into one of Hollywood's biggest icons and most desired stars. Dolly Sinatra was also deeply involved in politics. She campaigned aggressively for the Democratic Party and fought for women's rights with fierce determination. Stories circulated about her chaining herself to City Hall during suffrage protests. In public, she looked fearless and unstoppable. At home, though, life could be far more volatile. Because she spent so much time working and organizing politically, tension often exploded during the rare moments she was around the family. According to several accounts, Dolly regularly belittled Frank and sometimes became physically abusive. Adding to the atmosphere were persistent whispers that the Sinatra family had ties to organized crime. Those rumors only grew stronger because Sinatra's parents operated a tavern during Prohibition, a period when selling alcohol illegally often meant dealing with dangerous people behind the scenes. Ironically, that same tavern became the place where Sinatra first discovered the thrill of performing. As a child, he would climb onto the player piano and sing for customers in exchange for loose coins from bar patrons. The attention lit something up inside him. Music quickly became more than a hobby. It became an escape. When he turned 15, an uncle gave him a ukulele, and Sinatra started performing at family gatherings whenever he had the chance. But America was still suffering through the aftermath of the Great Depression, and dreams of becoming a singer sounded unrealistic to almost everyone around him. Teachers openly dismissed him. One reportedly told him he showed no real talent for anything. Sinatra took that personally. School itself became another disaster. He clashed constantly with authority figures, got into trouble repeatedly, and was eventually expelled for what officials described as general rowdiness. His entire high school career lasted only 47 days. His father was furious. To him, Frank looked reckless, directionless, and stubborn beyond reason. But by then, Sinatra had already made up his mind about the future he wanted. Nothing was going to pull him away from music. For the next several years, he bounced between ordinary jobs and small singing gigs across New Jersey. Then came what felt like his first real opportunity, a job performing at a roadhouse in Englewood Cliffs. To Sinatra, This was supposed to be the beginning of everything. Instead, it became another storm. Even at a young age, Sinatra carried himself with enormous confidence, and other musicians at the club quickly grew irritated by his attitude. Around the same time, he became romantically involved with a young woman named Tony Della Penta. What started as a passionate relationship soon spiraled into chaos. Behind Tony's back, Sinatra had also been seeing another woman, Nancy Barbato. Before long, the rivalry between the two women exploded into bitter arguments and emotional confrontations. The stress became overwhelming, and Della Penta reportedly suffered a miscarriage during the turmoil. Sinatra's response shocked many people around him. After Della Penta physically confronted Barbato, he abruptly ended the relationship and claimed he wanted to focus on Nancy because she was supposedly pregnant herself, though that later turned out not to be true. Della Penta was devastated and furious. Seeking revenge, she went to the police, leading to Sinatra being arrested on charges of seduction, an actual criminal accusation at the time. The situation turned even messier when Della Penta herself was later jailed after another altercation involving Barbato. By then, Sinatra had already moved on. He married Nancy Barbato later that same year, though the relationship would eventually become anything but peaceful. Today, people tend to picture Sinatra as the smooth, sophisticated king of cool. But early in his career, the image looked completely different. In the 1940s, he was marketed as a skinny, awkward teenage heartthrob whose young female fans screamed with a level of hysteria rarely seen before. Long before Elvis Presley or the Beatles inspired mass fan frenzy, Sinatra's audiences were already losing control. Everything changed in the early 1950s after he signed with Capitol Records and began collaborating with legendary arranger Nelson Riddle. That partnership helped create the polished, confident persona the world would forever associate with Frank Sinatra. But before that transformation happened, Sinatra found himself trapped in a brutal contract with famous bandleader Tommy Dorsey. Dorsey hired him in 1939, and Sinatra quickly became the band's breakout star. Behind the scenes, though, tensions constantly boiled over. Sinatra feuded with drummer Buddy Rich and grew increasingly bitter over a contract that allegedly handed Dorsey a massive share of his future earnings. Sinatra felt trapped. Later, he famously admitted that the only two people he had ever feared were his mother and Tommy Dorsey. Eventually, Sinatra decided to gamble everything on himself. Convinced his popularity was strong enough to survive without the band, he sued to break the contract. Against expectations, he won. According to reports, Dorsey stared him down afterward and coldly said, "I hope you fall on your ass." The bitterness never really faded. Dorsey continued criticizing Sinatra publicly for years. Around the same time, dark rumors began spreading through the entertainment industry about how Sinatra had truly escaped the contract. Some claimed mob associates had pressured Dorsey into releasing him by force, even threatening him at gunpoint. Whether the story was true or exaggerated, the whispers surrounding Sinatra's ties to organized crime would follow him for the rest of his life. And honestly, those rumors did not come out of nowhere. Sinatra openly socialized with well-known mob figures and was photographed alongside members of organized crime families on multiple occasions. In 1948, he even performed at the wedding of Willie Moretti, a notorious Genovese underboss. Many people believe those underworld relationships helped accelerate his rise to fame. Years later, comedian Jackie Mason claimed he was physically attacked by gangsters after making jokes about Sinatra during a stand-up performance. Stories like that only deepened the public fascination with Sinatra's alleged mob connections. Then there was powerful Chicago mob boss Sam Giancana, who reportedly wore a sapphire friendship ring gifted to him by Sinatra himself. Whether Sinatra was simply connected to dangerous people or far more involved than he ever admitted remains heavily debated. But the mystery surrounding those relationships became part of the legend. At the same time, Sinatra's fame kept reaching unbelievable levels. His publicist, George Evans, even staged fake screaming sections at concerts by hiring girls specifically chosen for how loudly they could shriek during performances. The manufactured excitement blended perfectly with the genuine hysteria already surrounding Sinatra everywhere he went. Fans broke into hotel rooms just to touch the bed where he had slept. Some tore pieces of clothing directly off his body. In one incident, nearly 35,000 fans reportedly caused a riot outside a packed venue after being unable to get inside. It looked less like fandom and more like complete chaos. Then came another controversy during World War II. Despite portraying heroic sailors in movies, Sinatra faced ugly accusations that he had dodged the military draft. Rumors claimed he bribed doctors to fake medical issues so he could avoid serving. The accusations became so widespread that the FBI investigated him. Nothing was ever proven. The actual reason Sinatra failed the military physical was far less glamorous. Doctors cited his damaged eardrum along with psychological struggles that raised concerns about his fitness for service. Still, the mob rumors never disappeared. By the late 1940s and beyond, Sinatra's name had become permanently linked to stories involving organized crime, political influence, celebrity excess, and backroom power. Some people saw him as a gifted artist trapped by dangerous friendships. Others believed those same connections helped build the empire that made him a legend. Either way, the story of Frank Sinatra was never just about music. It was about ambition, insecurity, power, violence, loyalty, fame, and a man who spent his entire life trying to outrun the scars he was born with. Hollywood turns against Sinatra. The 1940s became one long emotional whirlwind for Frank Sinatra and his wife, Nancy Sinatra Sr. On the surface, it looked like the American dream. Sinatra's fame was exploding, the family had 3 children together, and Hollywood was opening its doors to them. But behind all the glamour, their marriage was quietly falling apart. After leaving New Jersey for Hollywood, Sinatra began living a completely different lifestyle. Fame surrounded him every second of the day, and temptation came with it. Before long, he started cheating on Nancy regularly, drifting from one affair to another as his celebrity status grew larger and larger. Then, in 1945, things became far more serious when Sinatra began an affair with actress Marilyn Maxwell, someone he had known for years. This was not some quick backstage romance that disappeared after a few nights. The relationship stretched on for months, and Nancy eventually discovered it in the most humiliating way imaginable. One day, she noticed a beautiful diamond bracelet sitting inside Frank's car. Naturally, she assumed it was meant for her. Instead of confronting him, she kept quiet, expecting the surprise to come eventually. But the gift never appeared. Weeks later, during the family's annual Christmas party, Nancy glanced across the room and saw the bracelet sparkling on Marilyn Maxwell's wrist. In that moment, everything clicked. The holiday celebration instantly turned tense. Nancy ordered Maxwell and her husband to leave the party immediately, and once the guests were gone, she unleashed years of bottled-up anger on Sinatra. Faced with no way out, he admitted to the affair, though he tried minimizing it as something casual and meaningless. Somehow, Nancy chose to forgive him, but the damage had already been done. Word about the explosive Christmas party spread quickly through Hollywood gossip circles, and before long, Sinatra's private life became tabloid gold. Headlines constantly linked his name to cheating rumors, scandals, and secret romances. Some stories were exaggerated, others completely true, but together they created an image of a man spiraling further away from his family life. Soon, rumors surfaced about Sinatra becoming involved with actress Lana Turner, though Turner publicly denied anything romantic ever happened between them. Meanwhile, Nancy was left carrying the emotional weight of it all. Humiliated and exhausted by the constant betrayal, she reportedly made the painful decision to terminate a pregnancy in 1946 while their marriage was hanging by a thread. For a short time afterward, things seemed calmer. The couple welcomed their daughter, Tina Sinatra, and there were moments where it looked like the relationship might finally stabilize. But Sinatra simply could not stop chasing other women. By 1949, photographers caught him vacationing romantically with Judy Garland. The situation became even more complicated because Garland was not only one of Sinatra's close friends, but she was also recovering from a nervous breakdown and still married at the time. Even after all that, Nancy still did not walk away completely. But by then, her patience was nearly gone. At the same time, Sinatra's public image was becoming more difficult to control. Behind the charm, tailored suits, and smooth confidence was a man battling intense emotional struggles that very few people truly understood. Sinatra suffered deeply from depression, though he hid it well from the public whenever he could. Friends and colleagues often described sudden mood swings that could turn explosive without warning. When criticism hit him especially hard, he sometimes lashed out physically at reporters, photographers, or anyone he believed was disrespecting him. Negative headlines only made the situation worse. The more the press attacked Sinatra, the angrier and more unpredictable he became, creating a vicious cycle that followed him through much of his career. Oddly enough, one of the few places where Sinatra seemed genuinely comfortable was inside his favorite restaurant, Patsy's Italian Restaurant. The old-school Manhattan Italian spot became almost like a second home to him. Sinatra loved the food, the atmosphere, and the familiarity of it all. Because he visited so often, the restaurant became legendary in celebrity circles. Decades later, stars like Tom Hanks, Madonna, and Stephen King would all pass through its doors, partly because Sinatra had made the place iconic. But while Sinatra tried escaping his problems through music, food, nightlife, and fame, another relationship was about to completely consume his life. According to Hollywood legend, the first time Sinatra saw a photograph of actress Ava Gardner, he immediately told people he was going to marry her someday. When they finally met in person, Sinatra was captivated almost instantly. Gardner, however, was far less impressed in the beginning. Over time, though, the two grew closer, and what started as flirtation quickly exploded into a passionate affair. This relationship felt different from the others. Sinatra was not simply chasing excitement anymore. He became completely obsessed with Ava Gardner. The relationship consumed him emotionally, and he seemed willing to destroy everything else in his life just to be with her. By 1950, Sinatra and Nancy had been married for nearly 10 years. Together, they had survived poverty, fame, scandals, and endless rumors. But the Ava Gardner affair finally shattered whatever remained of the marriage. When Sinatra confessed the relationship, Nancy reached her breaking point. She locked him out of the house and contacted a lawyer almost immediately. Then came the detail that made the whole situation feel even more tragic. The couple publicly announced their separation on Valentine's Day of 1950. With the divorce process underway, Sinatra was finally free to pursue the woman he believed he truly loved. But instead of happiness, the affair with Ava Gardner triggered one of the darkest periods of his life. The tabloids became relentless. Newspapers painted Sinatra as selfish, reckless, and morally bankrupt. Fans who once adored him began turning against him, and Hollywood executives started seeing him as damaged goods. Almost overnight, the career that once looked untouchable began collapsing right in front of him. Frank Sinatra called Clint disgusting. Now we know why. On March 8, 1972, NBC Burbank's Studio One felt less like a television set and more like the center of the entertainment world. Even before the cameras rolled, the atmosphere inside the building was buzzing. Crew members rushed across the stage, producers whispered nervously into headsets, and the house band warmed up under the bright studio lights while the audience packed into their seats with growing anticipation. That night's episode of The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson was expected to pull in nearly 50 million viewers across America. For television in the early 1970s, that kind of audience was enormous. But what truly had everyone on edge was the guest lineup itself. Frank Sinatra was in the building. So was Clint Eastwood. At the time, Sinatra was already entertainment royalty. He wasn't just a singer or actor anymore. He was a cultural force. Meanwhile, Eastwood was quickly becoming Hollywood's newest tough guy sensation after the explosive success of Dirty Harry. The public loved both men, but behind the scenes, there were already rumors of tension connected to the film that had turned Eastwood into a superstar. Johnny Carson walked onto the stage to roaring applause, carrying the same effortless confidence that made him America's late-night king. He eased into his opening monologue with jokes about Richard Nixon, California smog, and the upcoming election cycle. The audience laughed on cue, the band hit every transition perfectly, and for a while, the night felt like another polished episode of classic television. Then Carson introduced his first guest. He described Sinatra as a man who had sold over 150 million records, won an Academy Award, and become one of the most recognizable entertainers in the world. The second Carson said his name, the crowd exploded to its feet. Sinatra stepped through the curtain wearing a perfectly tailored tuxedo that made him look less like a guest and more like a man arriving to take ownership of the room. He waved casually to the audience, flashed that familiar grin, and settled into his chair across from Carson with complete confidence. The chemistry between the two men was immediate. Sinatra joked that Carson hosted the best show on television because he avoided asking stupid questions. Carson laughed, the audience roared, and the conversation flowed naturally from there. They discussed Sinatra's latest music, his upcoming Las Vegas performances, and stories involving Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. Sinatra controlled the room effortlessly, mixing humor with swagger in a way only he could. For nearly 20 minutes, everything felt smooth and relaxed. Then Carson shifted the conversation. With a slight grin, he mentioned that Clint Eastwood would soon be joining them on stage to promote Dirty Harry. The change in Sinatra's expression was subtle, but impossible to miss. The smile remained, though it suddenly looked tighter, colder. Carson casually asked whether Sinatra had seen the film. Sinatra admitted he had not, but then calmly revealed something that immediately changed the energy in the studio. Dirty Harry, he explained, was originally supposed to be his movie. The audience grew quiet almost instantly. Sinatra leaned back and explained that Warner Brothers had initially developed the role with him in mind. Meetings had taken place, discussions with directors had happened, and for a period of time, he fully intended to star in the film. Then came the controversy. According to Sinatra, the studio pushed a humiliating narrative after he stepped away from the project. Stories leaked, suggesting he couldn't properly handle the massive .44 Magnum revolver because of the lingering effects of a hand injury. Sinatra insisted the reality was much simpler. Doctors had advised him not to strain his hand following tendon surgery. But instead of presenting it honestly, the studio allowed the story to turn him into the punchline. Now, Clint Eastwood was becoming a global icon, playing a role Sinatra believed should have belonged to him. Carson immediately sensed the danger in the conversation and tried to keep things light, but Sinatra was no longer interested in steering away from the subject. He openly admitted that he wanted to speak directly to Eastwood about it. Backstage, Eastwood heard every word. Production assistants scrambled in panic, unsure whether the situation was about to become television history or a live disaster. Eastwood, however, remained remarkably calm. Dressed in a simple sport coat without a tie, he looked almost underprepared compared to Sinatra's polished elegance. Still, he never hesitated. He simply adjusted his jacket and told the staff he would handle it himself. Back on stage, Sinatra continued pressing the issue. He framed the situation as something larger than a movie role. To him, it represented Hollywood changing hands from older legends to younger stars. Then he took it one step further. He challenged Eastwood directly, questioning whether the new star had the courage to face him publicly. The audience gasped. Carson glanced nervously toward the control booth while producers debated whether allowing the confrontation to continue was a terrible mistake, but the tension had become impossible to stop. Finally, Carson introduced Eastwood. The studio band played while Clint walked slowly onto the stage with the same controlled swagger audiences recognized from his westerns. The applause was respectable, but noticeably more cautious than the thunderous ovation Sinatra had received earlier. Everyone in the room understood that this was no longer a normal celebrity interview. Eastwood shook Carson's hand first before turning towards Sinatra. After a brief pause, Sinatra accepted the handshake as well. Carson immediately addressed the tension, asking Eastwood whether he had heard Sinatra's comments backstage. Eastwood confirmed that he had. What followed felt less like a television interview and more like a battle of generations unfolding in real time. Sinatra argued that Eastwood had benefited from a system looking for younger, cheaper stars. He dismissed Eastwood's spaghetti western success and repeatedly referred to him as little more than a television cowboy from Rawhide. Eastwood never raised his voice once. He calmly explained that he had simply accepted a role Sinatra chose not to take. To him, that was the nature of Hollywood, but Sinatra refused to let it go. He insisted Dirty Harry had been built around his image, his style, and his presence. Eastwood, in Sinatra's eyes, had inherited the leftovers of a role designed for somebody else. The sharper Sinatra became, the calmer Eastwood appeared. That contrast completely captivated the audience. Eventually, Sinatra shifted the argument toward the film's famous weapon, Harry Callahan's massive .44 Magnum revolver. Sinatra claimed the gun itself defined the character and challenged Eastwood to prove he could actually handle it outside of the movies. Carson looked stunned as Sinatra proposed an actual live shooting competition on national television. Eastwood immediately understood the challenge for what it was. Sinatra believed the younger actor would crack under pressure. Instead, Eastwood agreed. The audience erupted. Within minutes, the two men shook hands on the challenge. Same gun, same distance, same targets. 1 week later, on The Tonight Show, NBC executives were initially horrified by the idea, but the ratings potential proved too massive to ignore. Safety teams, insurance policies, and firearms specialists were brought in immediately as the network prepared for what quickly became one of the most heavily promoted television events of the year. The build-up only fueled public fascination. Sinatra trained publicly at a Beverly Hills shooting range, joking with reporters while cameras captured him firing the enormous revolver. The recoil visibly rattled him at times, but he played it off with charisma and confidence. Eastwood took the opposite approach. He disappeared completely from the spotlight and trained privately for hours each day alongside a professional firearms instructor. No cameras, no interviews, just repetition and discipline. By the time the rematch episode arrived, anticipation had reached unbelievable levels. NBC transformed part of the studio into a professionally supervised shooting range, while nearly 60 million viewers tuned in from home. Sinatra fired first. His shots landed mostly around the outer rings of the target, with only one clean center hit and one complete miss. Then Eastwood stepped forward. One shot after another struck center mass with remarkable consistency. 4 rounds landed in an exceptionally tight grouping that stunned both the audience and the professionals supervising the demonstration. For the first time all night, Sinatra looked genuinely humbled. He walked over to examine the target himself before finally acknowledging Eastwood's skill in front of the entire country. Then, instead of simply shaking hands, the two men embraced. The tension that had dominated the previous week suddenly dissolved. After the cameras stopped rolling, Sinatra and Eastwood reportedly shared a quiet drink together backstage. No insults, no rivalry, just mutual respect between two men who understood the pressure of carrying Hollywood expectations on their shoulders. The broadcast became legendary almost instantly. Ratings reportedly climbed to 63 million viewers, making it one of the highest-rated episodes in Tonight Show history. The event also raised millions for charity, leading NBC executives to immediately push for a rematch. Neither man agreed to do it again. For Sinatra, the moment became a rare public lesson in humility. For Eastwood, it cemented his image as Hollywood's new unshakable tough guy. And for everyone watching at home, it felt like witnessing two eras of American entertainment collide live on television.